The 9 most unlucky people on the planet. Hey Crash, ever had one of those days where nothing seems to go your way?
Nah, I'm pretty damn perfect.
Come on, you must have had something bad happen to you.
Well, there was this one time I decided to co-host a show.
Alright, no need to be snarky. I only ask because today we're going to be talking about the 9 most unlucky people on the planet, from being the only one to lose the lottery to being hit by a meteorite. Number 1. Kostas Mitsotakis is a Greek filmmaker who lives in a farming village called Sodeto in Spain. In Spain, there's a lottery called El Gordo, or the Fat One, that takes place around Christmas.
What a coincidence! There's a dude in my apartment building everyone calls El Gordo.
Residents buy a share of their town's ticket, and if their number wins, each resident that bought a ticket gets a share of the winnings. On December 22nd, 2011, residents of Sodeto rejoiced, all but one. You see, during El Gordo, salespeople go door to door to sell shares of the ticket. Mitsotakis, who lived well out of the way of the heart of the village, didn't receive any visitors. While residents got minimums of the equivalent of $130,000, Kostas got nothing, making him the only person to lose the lottery.
Holy shit, that sucks. Must feel awful.
Well, actually, he later stated that he found it funny, and made a documentary of the town called Quando Tocco, or When Touched, stating how the village experienced almost no change after the win. Number 2. Bringing misfortune with you is pretty bad, but bringing terrorism is worse. English couple Jason and Jenny Carnes Lawrence are the unfortunate two who came face to face with terrorism 3 times while on vacation.
Yeah, unfortunate. I'm sure it's just some weird coincidence, right?
Well, considering most of the attacks were suicide bombers, I'm going to guess they're not the culprits. The first time was New York City, New York in America, September 11th, 2001, and had the greatest magnitude of all 3, with an estimated 3,000 deaths. The second was in London on July 7th, 2005, where they thought it'd be safe. Think again, 4 British suicide bombers devastated the underground and bus network, bringing in a total of 52 deaths and 700 injured. The last was in Mumbai, India in November of 2008. The attack produced 173 deaths and about 300 injured.
Do you reckon terrorism is covered by travel insurance?
Why is money your first concern here?
Money is always my first concern. Dollar.
Anyway, the couple reported that Mumbai recovered much faster than New York, where Mumbai recovered in 3 days as opposed to New York's week-long recovery. They also stated that one thing was missing in Mumbai that was present in New York: fear. Number 3. In 1863 in Honey Grove, Texas, Henry Ziegland was hunted down by the brother of his late ex-girlfriend, who took her own life after their split up. The brother fired a bullet and downed Ziegland, and took his own life. The bullet, however, only grazed Ziegland's face and lodged itself into the tree behind him.
Damn, that sucks he didn't get to avenge his sister.
No. The brother isn't the unlucky one. Just keep listening. 20 years later, Ziegland went to cut down the tree, but seemed to have thought the task too difficult for normal methods. He instead surrounded the tree with explosives, which dislodged the bullet with such force that it went through Ziegland's head, killing him. That's taking the past coming back to haunt you to a whole new level.
That's absolutely insane! But I call bullshit. Who exactly recorded this back in 1863?
Admittedly, you could be right. The story's old enough for it to not be officially recorded, and it's considered common folklore. But it's up to you to believe.
We're only up to number 3, and you're already using folk tales. Boy, I can't wait for the rest of this fucking list.
Number 4. There isn't a single person that doesn't know about the Titanic disaster. But could you imagine surviving that tragedy plus 2 similar ones? Violet Jessop contracted tuberculosis as a child and was given only a few months to live, but she pulled through and managed to live a long life. When her father moved away, her mother took a job as a ship stewardess, and once her mother became ill, she became a stewardess herself to provide for her siblings.
Oh geez, you haven't even gotten to the unlucky part yet.
The first incident was the Olympic. Jessop began working aboard the Olympic in 1910, but a year later it collided with the HMS Hawke, a ship designed to sink other ships by ramming into them. The Olympic didn't sink, however, and Jessop made it back to shore safely. A few years later, the Titanic, the unsinkable ship, hit an iceberg. Violet escaped on lifeboat 16 with the baby she'd been handed to care for. Last came the Britannic, which sailed into mines placed by German U-boats and began sinking quickly. Jessop hit her head, but survived. Jessop continued in her line of work as a stewardess without further incident.
When did she finally get the hint that she wasn't meant to be a stewardess?
Jessop died in 1971 of congestive heart failure at age 84, after a long retirement starting about 20 years prior. Number 5. One of the unluckiest things is to have misfortune follow you wherever you go, and that can be confirmed by Gene Rogers. In 1967, Rogers was on a cruise with a friend, and the deck was wet from recent rain. Rogers slipped and fell overboard, and when her friend went for help, she slipped and knocked herself out. Rogers was retrieved an hour later when her friend finally woke up again.
That sucks, but I mean...
Then, in 1971, she was struck by lightning at a bus stop and suffered severe nerve damage to the point where she can no longer wear shoes. 2 years later, her metal bracelet attracted another bolt of lightning, but the damage was far less severe.
Well...
Then, in 1981, Rogers' husband came home drunk and attempted to strangle her. They've since been divorced, of course.
Wait!
Did I mention that Rogers was once mugged, or at least a few people tried to mug her? She encountered 3 men who took her purse, but when they tried to take the silver bracelet that was a gift from her sister, she socked one of the men in the nose and sent the other ones running.
Okay, I get it.
Hold on. Perhaps the worst unfortunate event was the bat. While running errands with her son, a bat swooped down and entangled itself in Rogers' hair. She went door to door looking for help, but she was mostly met with screams and, incidentally, sharp claws digging deeper into her scalp. Finally, Rogers came across a friend who shoved car keys at her and demanded she drive herself to a vet. A mesh bag was put over her hair and the bat was smoked to sleep so that they could cut it out. Rogers had to wear a beret for 3 months to cover the damage the bat had done.
Are you done?
One more thing. She says, dying doesn't scare me, but living scares the crap out of me.
Thanks for adding that.
Number 6. How unlucky do you have to be to own the title of Britain's most unlucky man? Ask John Lynn, also known as Calamity John.
Sounds like the most badass superhero ever, to be honest.
John's misfortunes began at a young age. Born the youngest of 5, he had underdeveloped lungs and wasn't given long to live. Miraculously, though, he pulled through. At 18 months old, John drank a bottle of disinfectant. Months later, he fell off a horse cart, where his grandfather watched in horror as a furniture van passed over him. John remained unharmed. Things stayed quiet for a few years, giving his family some time to breathe, until he was finally struck by lightning while riding a bike home in a storm. He dropped his bike in panic and fled home.
So far, he actually sounds pretty lucky. None of these things killed him.
He nearly drowned at the age of 14, and later that year, on Friday the 13th, fell from a tree and broke his arm. But it gets better. The next day on the way home, John's bus crashed, breaking the same arm. As an adult, John made a rather unwise choice of becoming a miner. He nearly died at the age of 20 when a colleague accidentally let go of a tub full of stone. On the way home from work, he was hit by a bus and escaped with only a bruised arm. While decorating one day, John was hit by a live cable. And just when you thought things weren't comically exaggerated enough, John's even fallen in a manhole.
I think I'm gonna stick with what I said about him being a superhero. He sounds fucking indestructible. Is he unlucky or just stupid and clumsy? Because if so, I know plenty of unlucky people.
Number 7. The old saying, lightning never strikes the same place twice, rings staggeringly false for Guinness World Record holder Roy Sullivan, who was whacked by lightning 7 times. Sullivan was a ranger of Shenandoah National Park in Virginia. There, in a fire tower, on the fateful day in 1942, a storm was brewing across the park. Sullivan watched lightning strike from the top of this tower, which had no lightning rod, and fled, fearing the lightning. Sullivan didn't make it far before the first bolt of lightning struck, searing his leg and causing him to lose a toenail, and leaving a hole in his shoe.
Hey, as much as I appreciate your storytelling, I really do, darling, we don't have time for 6 more lightning strike stories, so can you speed this along, sweetheart, yeah?
Yeah, sure. Lightning struck again in 1969, 1970, and 1972, after which he gained his title of Survived the Most Lightning Strikes in the Guinness Book of World Records. Sullivan was struck again 3 more times in 1973, 1976, and 1977.
Jesus Christ, it must have taken something incredible to put this guy down.
Well, actually, he ended up dying by his own hands in 1983, when he took his own life allegedly because of rejection by his love.
Wow. Would have thought he'd be a bit more resilient to pain after all that. I am honestly disappointed.
Number 8. Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan are famously known to be ground zeros for American atomic bombs Fat Man and Little Boy. This was the first time the world had seen such utter destruction from something so small. You can imagine the disbelief of being there to experience one bomb, but both?
Oh, I think I see where you're going with this.
It's pretty obvious, Crash. Tsutomu Yamaguchi is a survivor of both the Hiroshima and Nagasaki tragedies. On August 6, 1945, Yamaguchi, aged 29, was preparing to leave Hiroshima when the first bomb fell. He was knocked unconscious, but when he awoke, he found that one train was still operational, and he made his way back to his wife and son in Nagasaki on August 8th. Yamaguchi reported to Mitsubishi headquarters for work the next day, and while explaining the events of Hiroshima to a superior, another bomb fell. Yamaguchi later became part of an anti-atomic weapons movement, but claimed to harbor no ill feelings towards America. Yamaguchi passed away at the age of 93.
Whoa, hold on, 93? Shit! Maybe he's not so unlucky after all.
Number 9. If you're out to beat the odds, go big or go home. Alabama resident Ann Hodges was taking a nap in her home in Sylacauga when a meteorite shard the size of a softball bounced off the radio and into her hip, leaving a pineapple-sized bruise and making her the only person in recorded history to ever be hit by a meteorite.
A hugely prestigious title.
The hunk of rock sitting in her home was confiscated by the police, despite geologists confirming the authenticity of the space rock and requested verification from the Air Force. This was understandable, because at the time Cold War tension was high, and some of the public was blaming Soviets rather than the vast universe. You'd think that whatever space object flies into your house and gives you a good beating would be your property.
Understandably.
But Anne and her husband Eugene Hodges' widowed landlady, Bertie Guy, got a lawyer and sued Hodges for the meteorite. Hodges had to pay $500 to take back the meteorite. Afterwards, Anne rejected an offer from the Smithsonian, hoping to score a better deal. All she got for her troubles, however, was a nervous breakdown. Anne ended up donating the meteorite to the Alabama Museum of Natural History. She died in 1972 of kidney failure after splitting up with her husband.
You know, I was thinking, Culture. You asked me before if I ever had one of those days where nothing goes my way. But I didn't ask you. And I realize now that that was rude of me.
Yeah, that's okay, Crash. You're asking now, and that's what matters. I guess my worst day ever was probably...
Sorry, man, we're out of time. Gotta go. If you guys have any suggestions for future video topics, leave a comment down below. Later.
Follow CultureCrash on social media! Subscribe for more!
If you would like to support the show, then head on over to the CultureCrash Patreon page where you can receive rewards for your support. Every bit counts.